Okay, welcome back to One Piece Anime Review, episode 424. So, next week's episode will be the last new anime episode released for 3 months. Yes, I have heard that the anime is... Would there be any reviews for One Piece? Between next week and April? Yes. Basically, whenever new chapter manga comes out, and I'm hoping to get a chance to watch Fan Letter, and I've also heard there's going to be a new One Piece film coming out soon. I think maybe next year, and I saw the trailer for it. It looks like it's called One Piece Rocks, which we might be seeing Captain Rocks of the Rock Pirates. I'm like, okay, interesting. I saw what the new images of basically about look like. It looks fantastic. And I gotta get the reason now. Also, next week's episode is noteworthy for being the last episode for One Piece to be released on a weekly basis. Because this anime has released on a weekly basis since 1999. I have been reviewing this anime since 2017. So for 8 years I'm reviewing this series now, and still reviewing it, no problem, but times will change next year. So in the case of this episode, we're discussing episode number, where is it here? Here we go. 1154, The Truth Behind the Secret Plan, Vegapunk Claims Victory, and I'm also discussing chapter 1169 of the manga. So, mostly put, here's kind of what happens. So, there is flashbacks in here. Yeah. So the flashback is kind of basically, because we're getting toward the very end of this arc, where mostly put it, first you see Boss Morgan, where basically he wants to spin the truth about various events that happen in the course of this story. Stuff like Shanks versus Captain Kidd, Blackbeard versus Trafalgar Law, and about the war ticket. Also, he wants to also a line of Emperor Luffy kills Vegapunk and Vivi calls him, "You liar." Yeah. Interesting though fact we see here on top here. It's going to be... Now, as far as I can tell, Vivi does not appear in Elbath at all. There's surprisingly no cutaways in Elbath, because this has kind of been a thing since, I think, Wano, it's been, where we've had cutaways to, like, we've had intermissions to figure out what the rest of the world is up to, and Egghead kept up that particular thing, also having lots of flashbacks. Elbath has got a flashback, a long flashback, but it does not have a cutaway. Not that I've seen so far. So, this episode might be the last time we see Vivi for a while. Yes. We will receive a return of one character next episode, but in the case of one character, like S Snake, this episode is going to be her most recent appearance. Unknown if she's going to come back or not. She's been sort of a recurring character of this whole arc, so I don't think they come back. And we do see Luffy where he's saying goodbye to the robot, despite he does not know that the robot's not active. And as they he's talking to her, because of course she's the embodiment of Boa Hancock. And of course, like Barcelona talks to the Fleet Admiral about killing a close friend. We see how he first meets Vegapunk. We see Bonnie in a flashback, and he starts crying. And also, he calls the Fleet Admiral a brat because he's younger than he is. Of course, you can call him that. The Admiral doesn't basically say anything about it all. He probably would scold him for doing that, but because basically he had to kill Vegapunk, that's probably the reason why. We do in fact see that Vegapunk actually knew about York betraying him all along, thanks to a flashback that took place 2 weeks prior to Vince's episode, 2 weeks prior to Straw Hat's arrival. And they knew about everything, and then in order to prepare themselves to be shocked once again, it's basically Vegapunk, Sheikah, and Progress proceed to wipe their memories of the past 2 weeks of this stuff, and there's hints of it. Of course, this is also in the 2 weeks he actually set up that broadcast that we've been seeing for the past 7 episodes, and they had to do a recap of this whole thing for some reason because we had to stretch this arc out as much as possible. Yeah. And, well, basically, and we see him like reacting to various stuff happened, like throughout the whole thing prior to his death. That happened at like a while before this. And basically, the episode ends with the Straw Hats and Giant Pirates and of course we see Usopp seeing in person Dorian Bragi again, and everyone's all reunited. Luffy basically has calmed down from his Gear 5 after being in that form for about 3 or 4 episodes. He's finally calmed down. He needs some food and relaxing in Nami's lap. And of course, now they're on the way to Elbath. Basically, next episode, it's all about going to Elbath. All in all, great episode. Yep, but before I close the video out, we have to talk about basically news at the manga. First of which, we have a color image of all the rock pirates. Of course, you're probably thinking this picture, who is Rocks? Rocks got with the sword in the middle. Whitebeard is obviously the one with the Whitebeard mustache. The one with the long hair, that's Sheikah the Lion. Let's see. Of course, one purple hair, that's obviously Big Mom. Gloriosa's there. Oh yeah, and the drunk guy who is also basically part of Blackbeard's crew. So the chapter is called "My Death Cannot Come Soon Enough." Where we see Shanks, where he is already a pirate at this point in time, 14 years prior to its main story. So he finds out, oh yeah, Roger has a son, that being Ace. And then we cut to Loki's return, and apparently he reveals to everybody that Imu tricked him. Basically, the government was not going to accept them, basically become slaves. So he wants them to kill him, and also have Loki go to the treasury, get the great treasure of Elbath. What the heck it is not really very clear. Yeah. Like really strong. And then of course you have Loki. I think it's Loki. Loki is taking on his father, not Harold. Harold's his name. So they fight back and forth. And of course, if Chief Harold's like, you have to kill him and take a throne. And of course, he'll not to eat it. He'll eat it, and then of course, then he goes to the treasury, opens the box, goes to find the box, like, and it's like the forbidden devil fruit. And then the chapter ends randomly with a Malaby thrown at him saying, "Whoa, who did that?" Yeah, quite interesting, this one. It's over really quickly, but we're itching toward, not the end of the arc per se, but I think we're getting very close to the end of this flashback, because this flashback is going on now for quite a while. How long per se? 5 months. Yes, this flashback is going on now for 5 months. And we won't find a resolution to this thing for 2 weeks. I'm like, really, Oda? Really? We ended this weird cliffhanger, like, who threw this mallet at Loki? Here's my personal theory. That we have about 2, maybe 3 more chapters left. We'll finally go back to present day. Who knows? But we'll find out in 2 weeks. Okay? So I get the chapter roughly a 9 out of 10. Yep. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the video. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, to notifications. Next, we have Comic Corner, and then it's on to Sentai for a 30-minute movie. Okay, next video. Bye.